welcome to Crawlspace. I'm Tim here today with Lance. Lance, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic today, Tim. I hope everyone who's listening, I hope they're doing just as fantastic. And the people that we have on today, we have such a treat. I mean, these two gentlemen who've come on are part of this story that is now a docu-series on Hulu. So the trailer leads you in a direction that is one way, but the story itself is completely different. I can't really put it into words. You have to listen to this conversation. But Tim, I can't put into words how you are because I just keep talking. So how are you?
I'm doing great over here. Really excited to introduce this conversation with Andy Robertson and Brian Haugen. And Andy directed the new docu-series on Hulu. It's called Hey Beautiful, Anatomy of a Romance Scam. And Brian Haugen is the man at the center of the scam, even though he did none of the scamming. It's a wild story. His image was used and essentially his identity was stolen thousands of times. And it's really kind of a wild dilemma, I think, to have. And I think people would react all different kinds of ways. So I'm really glad we get to speak with Brian, who told us how he reacted.
Right. And I think it's important to know how he reacted. And like you said, we would all react in different ways. This is a perspective of this type of story that we've heard before with like the Tinder swindler. You have these people who will prey on the lonely population out there who are trying to find love or trying to find friendship online, and they will prey upon them and they will take from them until they have nothing left. But this perspective is totally different. And one thing that you just said that made something click in my head was that you went almost as far as saying it's a cautionary tale. Like, this is a cautionary tale. Everyone has their social media sites, and at one point, Andy says, like, set your stuff to private. Set it to private. And then Brian comes in and says, that doesn't even matter. Like, he had his stuff set to private, too. He had a private account as well. But I don't want to give too much of it away, but it is a really unique perspective that we don't see too often when we tell stories like this. And also, again, I feel like we keep saying this, a cautionary tale.
It's a really wild story. I can't wait to watch the docu-series. It just aired yesterday. If you're listening to this episode on its release day, it aired on May 20th, 2025. So it's available now on Hulu. Yeah, can't wait to watch it. Hopefully we get a chance to have Brian and Andy back to speak about the docuseries, and definitely let us know what you think of this episode and this series on YouTube or Spotify. You can leave comments there, and there's video on both places now, newly on Spotify, so check that out.
And Tim, one more quick thing before we head over to this conversation. We have our virtual fundraiser coming up on June 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our nonprofit Private Investigations for the Missing. And folks can check that out on our Missing Podcast YouTube channel. That's at Missing CSM on YouTube. So we hope that as many people as possible can swing on over there and give to this amazing organization.
Absolutely. Okay, so follow us on social media at Crawlspace Podcast or Crawlspace Pod, and we'll be right back after this quick break.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Welcome to the podcast, Andy and Brian. How are you both doing this morning?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing good. Thank you.
So happy to have you on, but I got to be honest, this is the interview that we'd been planning for a few days now, which I'm like kind of nervous because I have no idea what's happening. We got a trailer for the project that you guys are a part of. It's so mysterious and so anxiety producing. You guys are on the West Coast. It's 8 a.m. I've had a few hours to deal with it, to prepare for this. But for anybody who's not familiar, can you each give a little background about yourselves and your reason for being on the show?
Yeah, I'll start off. My name's Andy Robertson. I'm a documentary filmmaker, and over the last few years, I've been creating a project called Hey Beautiful, Anatomy of a Romance Scam. It has been an incredible journey that started for me as the filmmaker with meeting this other person on our chat here, Brian Haugen. And through Brian, I met several other people who'd also been caught up in the most elaborate, far-reaching scam that I have ever heard of. This scam has tentacles that reach around the world, that involves thousands of people, that involves identity theft on a global industrial scale. Our investigation and what I learned through meeting Brian and through the openness of all of these other victims was just about this truly remarkable scam with just these far-reaching implications. And Brian is the person whose face is at the center of this. This whole universe of scam victims kind of revolves around him. And it's just like hearing his experience and his story just really taught me a lot about identity and how we present ourselves online and the kind of social identity that we have, but also about how bad actors out there take advantage of this identity and take advantage of the loneliness that we seek to remedy by going online and can just destroy lives. So it's been a remarkable journey, and we've learned so much. And the show is really like a fantastic encapsulation of this major problem that's happening online these days.
And I'm Brian Haugen. I'm the face that you see. I am a makeup artist and a commercial actor, and I own a brand of cosmetics. And I teach women how to do their own makeup. My brand is called By Brian. And what's interesting about that is my store, my business during the pandemic or beginning in the pandemic, I decided to do a rebrand. And as I began to rebrand, the person that was helping me design my website brought it to my attention. He says, Facebook, social media is a big deal, which I think we know that. However, towards the beginning of us working on this, my Facebook account got shut down. And then shortly after that, 2 of my Instagram accounts got shut down, my personal account and my private account. And then I was ensuing it to try to get accounts open. Roll the tape a little bit forward, and now I'm doing a launch, and the designer is still like, you're dead in the water if you don't have these available. I continued with what was happening, and my first interview, my first woman that came on to learn about how to do her own makeup, because I teach women how to do their own makeup, she is one of the women that is a feature of this story. And I got to begin to meet many, many women who have fallen in love with all of my images and a story behind it. That's kind of the beginning of this. So it kind of gives you a little insight into this.
You're on this show right now, and I'm so glad that you can smile about this, because when you watch the trailer, it's really tense. And to have this happen to somebody is sort of like that whole cyber hacking nightmare. I got to take it back a little bit. You said your Facebook and 2 Instagram accounts were shut down. What information were you given when they shut that down?
My accounts were shut down saying that I had broke community standards and guidelines. So that's all I knew. I had an idea of what they were up to. Let's say someone else was potentially closing my account or reporting my accounts, which then got shut down by Meta. So that's kind of an interesting thought about this. I was caught without any of my previous communication with my audience, literally coming into the holidays that year, and I was just stuck without the ability to put up ads or anything because of that.
As I learned, and as Brian told me the story and the film, and this whole thing started with these women who'd reached out to Brian hoping to receive a makeover over Zoom and saying, like, I've fallen in love with you. And can you confirm that you're really Michael Silver? He suddenly realized that what was happening is like all of his identity had been stolen by somebody and used in this massive, massive romance scam. And over the course of Brian trying to stop this, trying to nip this in the bud and report fake accounts and figure out what was happening, all of his own social media profiles were shut down and they mysteriously went offline, and he couldn't figure out who was stopping that. And so there are thousands and thousands of fake profiles that are out there on the internet that use Brian's pictures and sometimes even use his name, but are not controlled by him. And Brian's own social media profile is not out there. So there's a million Brian Haugens or lookalikes out there in the world, but they're all fakes. They're all frauds. And each one of them is out there to try to, it's a lure. It's trying to rope people in to catch them in these romance scams, to take them for all they're worth.
So how did you come to realize that that was happening?
It was receiving emails, messages on Facebook, messages on, through all these social media accounts that I was receiving. It's a bit frustrating after a while because they're wanting you to let them know that, oh yeah, I am the real guy. They're coming face to face with a situation where they've fallen in love, and they're now coming to, at some point, awareness that they are not in a relationship with someone that is real. I'm reading emails. Can you please verify that you're Brian Haugen? As Andy said, there were many answers that I had, which were all about that. But there came a point where I just started making a script and copying it and sending it. And then when there was a point where I was like, I don't need to talk to these people. That kind of happened in the beginning. I was like, what do I do? Do I need to talk to these folks? And talk to a client who's a blogger and has an online presence. She says, Brian, you don't have to answer any of these people. It would be like someone just sending an email into our account and we're going to reply to them. We don't have to. There was a part of me that wanted to clear it because I could tell that there was a lot of angst and anxiety and intensity behind these emails and for these women without even having a conversation with them. I could feel that. I wanted them to be okay. I wanted, it's kind of like, hey, it's asking me for help. They asked me for help. That very simple, can you verify that you are the real guy? That's a loaded question. Anyway, how can I verify? Okay, sure. I don't know anything about what's been going on. So now I'm putting pieces together. Oh, there are people that are falling in love or falling for this, and it's the same images and everything.
That's crazy. So you started getting these emails without any knowledge that this was happening, and people are asking you, women, right, are asking you if you can verify your own identity, and you feel the need to respond to them because you said that you can sense that they have some sort of angst going on there. What kind of details were you given in those initial emails, and then what do you respond with?
Initial emails were pretty simple. I've been having a conversation with a guy. I figured out how to do a reverse search, took your photo, and not everybody shared this, but that's kind of, if you boil it down, your photo pic popped up, more information about you. And that's what they would generally say. They would say sometimes, oh, it was on Twitter, or maybe they're coming on Twitter, or they're on Facebook. Then the sharing becomes much greater. Now I'm going to learn more and more about them if they're willing to talk about it. That kind of rolls into the next portion of this. Let's see if I can talk to them and find out how this happened.
Which was really where we picked up with when we began the documentary. And when I first met Brian Haugen, I had met this person whose identity had been stolen on this global industrial scale. And he was telling me all about these women that had fallen in love with his image and how much it had disrupted his business and his personal life and his professional life and his control over his own identity. And I thought, this is a great film. This is a great story in here. And so Brian and I, we started working together at that point. And first we said, let's start to get in contact with these women who've been reaching out to you. At this point, they all had a very special relationship with Brian. They'd fallen in love with somebody that looked like him, that they thought was him. And now they're talking to this same person and they start to open up to him. Brian is a very compassionate, empathetic person, and they were really trusting of this process and said, sure, we'll participate in this film. So we went to their homes and their hometowns and we interviewed a group of these women and we heard their stories, very personal stories about what it was like to be caught up in the mind control of a very, very talented scammer who's using extremely sophisticated technological methods to trick them. A lot of people think of like, oh, this woman lost money in a scam because she fell for a man that's way too handsome for her. But it's not that simple. These scammers, like I said, use very, very high technology tricks. There's occasionally the use of AI or deep fakes involved. This is a road-tested method of mind control, coercive control, email fraud, creating dozens and dozens of variants. Like they'll create a fake persona and they'll have Instagram accounts and LinkedIn accounts. They're not all in the happiest of circumstances. Some of the marriages have been lacking. Some of them have gone through painful breakups and painful divorces. There's an epidemic of loneliness in this country. Most of us are seeking out friendships and relationships online. What we saw is how these smart women, in most cases, women who you would not normally get something by like this, are falling for these elaborate scams. So by the time they reached out to Brian and get in touch with him for the very first time, they're in a very, very complicated headspace. They're not sure what's going on. They have no idea what's real. In the first few moments of when Brian and these women meet, which you'll see in the film, there's a remarkable phenomenon going on of somebody trying to find their way back to reality. It's a really, really unique process to watch. And the women and the amount of openness and sharing that they provided for this film is something that I'm eternally grateful for. But it's also what makes this project very unique and very special, is that it's a very personal story that they've told us.
Yeah, totally. And you'd mentioned a couple of times the word loneliness, and you said there was a loneliness epidemic in this country. I agree with you on that. When certain people are executing this hack, what are they looking for? How are they finding the women, and what are the women putting out there indirectly or directly that has connected them to the people doing this hack?
They're finding them on Facebook dating sites. They're finding them on Instagram. They're finding them on LinkedIn. They're finding them on Words with Friends.
Right.
You'll just be playing Words with Friends or even Scrabble Go, little video games on your phone, and another player will message them and start a conversation, and they're patient. A scammer could spend months grooming a victim before they decide to make that first introduction where they say something personal to them. There's one woman, Ruth Grover, who lives in England, who runs a website called Scam Haters United, who was a very huge help in this process because she tracks a lot of people, photo victims. She catalogs people whose photos are stolen for these sort of catfishing scams. And she explained, like, her own experience is that she was on Facebook and she changed, her husband had passed away, and she changed her status from married to widowed. And immediately she was deluged by 4-star generals in the American army falling in love with her. What is a military scam? It's a variant of this kind of scam. There are certain ways where people will scour your online presence and they will find that little bit of vulnerability. Or it could just be they're casting a wide net on a video game that people are playing on their phones and they're just waiting to see who comes up. I mean, it's a numbers game. They're doing this by the tens of thousands. Eventually, you're going to catch some people that just happen to be at that right combination of vulnerability and naivete where they have not heard of this scam before.
That's incredible to me, that the patience is so important in order for these scams to be like properly executed, because you can't just start talking to somebody on Words with Friends and, you know, a couple days later know that they have millions of dollars and, oh, they're also very vulnerable. Like, you have to actually establish a legit relationship, but it's not a relationship because you're fake, because you're scamming someone. We talk to people all the time about this, and this, I just want to get your opinion on it. It just feels to me like there's more work involved with that than it would be just getting a regular job and earning a living without scamming people. In your opinion, what is it that they're getting from this? Like, is it a narcissistic fulfillment that they're getting, that they need to know that they're bleeding someone or many people?
I don't know if that really is always the case. I think for many of these scammers, they can be very young. They have no other means to make money in the economies where they live. And in actuality, they know enough people that are doing this that may be making a little bit of money. And they even may know the person that's making a lot of money or know about that. And so they learn about it because it's an opportunity that is going to be better than the opportunity that they have. Then they can hang out with other people as they do this. And think about it. That's just one person that on Words with Friends that they're doing that. At the same time, they're hitting up 20 other people just sending out the information. They're just setting the script out, and then they find out who's going to do a little bite. They have no idea how much money they're going to make. And if they hit one that has money, it's going to be amazing. And it's funny, the women don't even have to have a lot of money. The many women can just have assets that they're willing to sell or take out a loan on. Lots of that is going on. It's extreme. You would not believe the stories that I've heard, the women's lives. When they come to me and find me and are finally willing to talk, they are beaten down. A woman that I got a call from, and she's like, "Oh, can you verify?" This is one of the more recent ones. While we're almost ready to film, I said, "Could we chat? Could we get online and talk about this?" And I'm trying to build relationship over a few minutes with this woman to get her to open up about, because I want her to be true to what's just happened. The day before or within the last 12 hours, she found out that this is all fake and everything that she's poured into this is for naught. And it took her 3 or 4 days because we talked every day. She was just like, because she was talking to him every day. And so now it's me they're talking to every day. If that happened, are you willing to speak? Are you willing to talk? Could we talk? And finally on day 4, she shared and unloaded the whole thing. And the cathartic experience for these women is beyond belief. And my goal in trying to get them to share is to help get them there. You will get there much quicker if you're willing to share your story with me, who you're in love with, who's actually the real guy. And I'm going to help you through this. Now, the funny thing of it is you don't know what's going to happen after that experience happens, because as one of the women loves to call it, it's the cult of Brian. When that one woman left that conversation with her daughter and her son, who came to do a intervention on her, and her husband was like, "What's going on? How come they just pulled up to the house?" And after they left, after they did the intervention, everyone went home and everyone went to their rooms in the house. She went back right here to her computer and sent one more Western Union or gift card to that guy after the gig was up.
It's worth it for these scammers, because once they get somebody on the hook, you may think it's just like it's a narcissistic thing, but we've got victims who lost between $1,000 and $1.5 million. So this can be a very, very lucrative business. It is a very lucrative business for these people around the world who are conducting these scams.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Okay, so how does this scam get off the ground? So your identity is stolen. There are images of you on several different sites with lots of different names. They're contacting women. Where does it go from there?
From the victim's point of view, a fake profile has reached out to her, says, "Hey, I see you in LinkedIn. I like the business you're in. Maybe we could move our conversation over to WhatsApp." And that's the first step, to take it to a platform that is harder to track. In most cases, we're watching people move it to WhatsApp because people really believe that's an end-to-end encrypted chat and they can get away with it. So they'll start on WhatsApp, and then they'll start with the love bombing. "Oh, you're really pretty. I really like your hair." They'll start in with their own sob story. "Oh, my wife passed away from cancer a couple years ago. I'm stuck working on this oil rig," or "I'm in a foreign country trying to work with gemstone miners to get my gemstones out of customs." Somehow their scam has taken them to the other side of the world. And then they start to build a relationship with these women that they'll spend months on before they'll even ask for a dime. And sometimes once they do eventually come up with an excuse of something that has happened to them and we need to get some money to get me out of this jam, they'll send them $5,000, $10,000. And a scammer, if they have a sense that maybe they're talking to somebody who's got real deep pockets, they'll send that first payment back. And they'll say, "Oh, thank you. You got me out of this trouble. Save my ass over here in Vietnam. I'm giving you your $5,000 back." And the woman will say, "Great, I trust him. He's a perfect person. He's the perfect boyfriend. I loaned him money and he paid it back." And once that happens, they're on the hook for everything. They'll stay till the bitter end. till there's nothing left.
That's all true. So when I met one of these women for the first time, I was teaching her how to do makeup, and think about this. She's halfway around the world. So she's up it's 2 p.m. in the afternoon here, and it's late in the morning there. And she did everything she could to be there on time and be there and ready to go. At the end of that call, I say cautiously, was there anything else I could teach you, or is there any questions? And the first thing out of her mouth, do you know Michael Silver? And I'm like, okay, Brian, count down, and you've been scammed. And me sharing that with her, I could see the wheels turning in her face, things like, I don't know if this is real, because there's been deep fake used on her. She's already spoke to me in a video, short video, maybe not coming in so well because the service is really bad, all kinds of tricks that they use. And we ended the call, and we spoke again within a year later. She started to come up to all my Zoom events. I had big group events that she started to come to. She was the first one in the room every time. People that I would host with, I'm like, did you see that woman in the room? Yeah. That's one of the victims. Ultimately, we had another call, and that's when she shared with me. I was sitting like this. My assistant was taking notes off camera. I go, so how much did you give? About 1.5 million. And she broke it up into multiple amounts, and she sold that story. He gave it to me, and he gave it back. And he gave it to me, and he gave some of it back. And we built that trust. And then all of a sudden he needed a big amount of money. When she said that amount of money, I just stopped. An emotion hit me so hard. The hair on my arms was standing up. And I looked at my assistant and I was like, this is crazy. This is really like, I'm shook. And that was a moment where she had finally shared it with me on a level of, I'm willing to be honest, and I know that you're the real guy.
What would happen is these women would eventually find out, like, oh, I think this guy's a fake. And they would find a webpage for Brian Haugen, makeup artist, makeup tutorial. And they would sign up for him, and they'd tell their scammer, like, what's going on with this thing? And the story is sometimes like, I use this service. They use artificial intelligence to generate a fake person that's going to give you a makeover. You're going to be talking to a computer. This one particular woman got on this Zoom call with Brian and had no idea if she was talking to a real human being, if she was talking to her boyfriend, if she was talking to a computer. She certainly did not believe that she was talking to a makeup artist who'd had his identity stolen. It was a long road for her to kind of get back to reality.
And it was a long road for her to get to me too. She did put the time in to find me, but she sent me a message on LinkedIn. I don't go on LinkedIn. I do, but not enough. I see a message. First, what message? She said hi. I said hi. That was that. 8 months later, she sends, Brian, I need you to please tell me that this guy that I'm talking to, and she started laying out what she just heard from him, knows about him. I didn't see that message for months. So she's sitting there having sent it to me on LinkedIn without knowing that I'm not reading my LinkedIn every day. She's a LinkedIn person. She's in that part of business. So she's questioning what's probably in her mind, what's going on here? Why isn't this person reply back to me? Is this a scammer? Is he the real guy? Who's the real guy? There's a lot of that.
And how long had she been caught up in the scam at that point?
I think she'd been in the scam for about a year, Brian, before the first time she called you. It was still another few months before she actually managed to get herself out. Every time she would tell the scammer, oh, I think I found something. Gabby sent us her entire WhatsApp archive, the whole transcript of every single text message she had with the scammer.
I have so much from her.
It's 113 pages long. I spent an afternoon reading it, and I felt sick afterwards because it's just an exercise in psychological manipulation. It's very difficult to read. The dialogue from a woman who's deeply in love and who has found her soulmate, and somebody who is manipulating her emotions to get out of that. And when she would discover, oh, I found an Instagram page that has all these pictures on there. There's a story that the scammer used to talk her out of this. And it was effective. And it kept her in the scam for a few more months. And she lost more money. Even after she'd found the truth, it was hard for her to swallow. It was harder for her to believe that this wasn't true, that she'd been duped, that somebody really wasn't in love with her than it was for her to accept the truth that this person that I fell in love with isn't real, that they never existed in the first place, and that all the money I've given, I'm never getting back.
Yeah, so there's obviously a period of denial there when someone is confronted with the reality of the situation. How many people are at the center of these scams?
Tens of thousands. You'll have to really watch the show to see it's a complicated organization. It's a decentralized network, usually take place in foreign countries. There are often people working in the country where the victim is located to help move the money around. There's a money laundering network that's at the center of it. It's an enormous financial crime. We had a conversation with the FBI as part of the documentary, and they sort of lay out the way that this is organized. We have a very talented cybersecurity analyst who was able to put together clues and trace Bitcoin wallets and web addresses behind certain accounts, who was able to actually identify some of the people who were directly behind this scam. So there's some really interesting things that you're going to learn when you watch the documentary. But the way that this organization is structured and the way that they work around the world, this kind of decentralized network of cells of scammers almost, is a really remarkable construct. But we lay it out very, very clearly in the film itself. It's a real trip how these things were organized.
Brian, what was it about you that you think made you the target?
Just look how handsome this guy is.
That's the deal.
Aside from the obvious.
That's the deal. Number one. And there's lots of photos, which I don't post photos of me anymore.
So describe your Instagram. What was good? Tell them what your Instagram feed was full of. You had this Instagram page that you called your lifestyle Instagram.
Instagram is full of photos of me out and about in the world. There's plenty of individual photos, lots of selfies. There was a few thirst traps, but nothing. I wouldn't think that I was I didn't even know what that word was back then. I don't think I was like, "What is that?" to friends. I'm like, but me traveling. My brother worked for an airline in Hong Kong. I was traveling to see my brother a lot during this period of time, and I was putting together a huge amount of photos of my travels in Vietnam. So all of my stuff just played into it. Oh, hey, I'm flying on a plane right now, and I'm in business class on a nice airline, and there's another photo of that. Oh, I'm just coming back into Hong Kong's airport, and in between that, all those other fun, juicy photos of that Brian is snapping off and taking. It's really telling a beautiful story, and I still to this day sometimes don't understand when the women share this, but they're like, "It was crazy, Brian. The scammer was able to say something, and that photo showed up next on his Instagram page." And I was kind of trying to understand fully what they were meaning, because they did finally come across my real Instagram. These women sleuthing found the real account and said, "So why is this account there?" to Michael Silver. "What's going on here?" And there was a story for it, a cover-up. Fascinating, I guess just my life. And for many of these women, a life that they wanted, a life of traveling to exotic places, handsome man, always by himself. There's no women in the photos, and there's hardly any men in the photos. It's just Brian. This is perfect.
Wow. It's mind-blowing. I mean, it really is. Like, everything that you put out there, just innocently enough, just to do what everybody else does with social media, it became exactly what they needed. And you said they worked their stories around your actual travels. It all kind of fit all together.
I gave them what they needed perfectly. Little did I know.
I mean, I'm thinking about friends right now who do what, you're describing, and I'm about to text them and be like, you need to start toning it down a little bit.
Set your Instagram profiles to private.
But the challenge with going to private is all of a sudden now, if you need a public profile, I get private because my private account was shut down too. I'm like, oh, someone infiltrated into my private account and got it shut down or reported, because you would have to know. I guess they could just report it without even knowing what's in the private. One of the scammers who wants my personal account shut down because they have another account that's me, and they want the real guy shut down.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
And a thank you to our sponsors. Back to the program.
Yeah, so it seems like part of the mind control side of this is like touching on the gaslighting thing, where it's like they'll get to it first, to the victim. They'll tell them before you can tell them. And then that kind of sinks in a way that they're more likely to believe that when confronted with both sides. Am I barking up the right tree with that?
Gabby was one of the victims who shared her stories with our cameras, and she sort of summed it up. She says it's like being in a tunnel. She called it the love tunnel. When you're in love with somebody, you tend to believe what they say over everybody else. So when you're confronted with a contradiction, like, wait a second, I thought that he was a gemstone wholesaler who was in Vietnam buying diamonds. And now I'm seeing this webpage that he's actually a makeup artist from Los Angeles. This doesn't make sense. I'm going to confront him about it. And he says something, and you're like, oh, well, of course, I'm going to believe the person that I'm in love with over this other person, over these random people online who are saying it's fake. And then she gets to another point where she's like, well, maybe it is fake and maybe it's a lie and maybe I should just get out of this. But if I leave now, I'm not going to get anything back. And so she's really kind of holding on to this hopes that maybe if it's in her interest to believe that this is real, because then I'm going to have a relationship. And when he finally gets back to my country, then he's going to pay me back and we're going to have a life together with all these diamonds that he's been buying in Vietnam.
And, you know, what's great is I had a back surgery in 2020, and then I had another one in 2022. And in 2023, I had a little work done on my hip. So think about this. As those surgeries went on, less content happened. I didn't put up anything, actually, of the other two surgeries. I don't believe. But there are photos there that are usable.
You took a selfie right before you went into surgery. So there's a picture of Brian in a hospital bed that went up on his Instagram.
So that was in the trailer.
Yeah.
So it's real. You were actually in the hospital.
I was in the hospital. I had a low back surgery, and I was in the hospital. So it's perfect. You know, Michael Silver, he's in needing to get those gemstones out of the country, and he has lots of stress about it, and he has a heart attack, and he's got to have a surgery in Vietnam. So he can get back over to the customs office and get them paid, because they haven't gotten paid. So she's already sent money for the customs office. Now she's going to send him more money for that $45,000 or $50, whatever it was cost surgery. And you know what? Thank God that surgery got done.
How does the transfer of money happen? Obviously wiring it, but you need like wire information. Yeah, how does that go
so
down?
Many ways. There's wire transfers from the bank. Once we really peeked under the hood and did our forensic accounting with all the stuff, there's wire transfers to the bank, but they're not necessarily going directly to the victim in a foreign country. They're going to his agents. Sometimes the agents are in the victim's home country. In Canada, we filmed with victims in Canada and Germany and a couple in the United States. And so there would usually be some intermediary in that country that the money would go to through a wire transfer. Sometimes it's going through Bitcoin. It's usually, when it gets very advanced, it goes through Bitcoin. But some of the most common ways are just, if you just send me a gift card, go down to the drugstore on the corner, hit the CVS or the Walgreens, and buy one of these Amazon gift cards. And all you got to do is just scratch off the back of that card and read me the numbers that are on there, or just take a picture of it and send it to me. And that's going to help get out of this jam that I got in. They'll do that. So gift cards, wire transfers, Bitcoin wallets. And I got to say, like, if this has ever happened to anybody who's listening to this, and you've been through something like this, and I know that many victims are extremely embarrassed and are terrified about letting anybody know, because they're experiencing a lot of shame about this. And some of the women that we talked to in the show erased all of the evidence. They felt bad about what had happened. They didn't want people to find out. There's an immense amount of shame around it. And if a victim throws this stuff away, there's not going to be any hope of justice. But some of the victims who did preserve the evidence in this gave us a paper trail, and we were able to follow the money to see where it ended up.
You know what's funny about that shame these women experience also is, I'm sitting here listening to him, I can recall when I got rid of so many emails. And there came a point where I was just exhausted by it all. I'm going to wash this out of my life. I'm just going to delete all this messaging, all these emails and messages, because I had no control over it. I couldn't make it stop. And I will say that there was shame and embarrassment as I would tell my friends and buddies everything that this is going on. Also lurking under that is like, why aren't you putting a stop to this, Brian? Why don't you just stop this? I don't have any control over this. My account now got shut down. You can find out more about that. And I don't have the ability to do anything. I am literally helpless. So that was the way that I had some control. I'll just get rid of this. That never stopped anything. And I want to say one thing, go back to why did they choose me? And I say, because I'm a handsome guy. I'm going to say, I was not saying I was a handsome guy a lot before this, but I say that because that's the truth of the matter, but it's not something I run around saying, oh, I'm a good looking, handsome guy. I want to clear that. That's not how I walk through life at all. I've said I'm a handsome guy way more many times while we've been filming this thing than ever before. Can we get that one more time? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure.
Well, that's good because no one else is allowed to say that they're handsome on this show other than Tim. So we should probably tread lightly moving forward.
You're both very handsome. Don't cut yourself short.
Thank you, Andy. I've been telling Lance that, but he won't hear it. So the victims felt shame. And obviously, Brian, you didn't do anything wrong, but did you feel a sense of guilt?
Yeah, there was a part of me. And this begins to play into other parts of my own personal life, which would be don't stop at 1. You need to watch 2. 2 is great. And 3. There's so many reveals. You'd be like, oh, wow. I even have had experience myself. I felt like, what did I do wrong? Was I not supposed to take these photos of myself and post them on Instagram? Let's just start there, basic. Oh, wow, I took a photo of me wearing a pair of whatever. I have a photo where I'm comparing one pair of boxers to another pair of boxers or whatever. And I'm like, because that was not really who I was, but we're moving into this culture of posting all that. It's everywhere. Everybody's doing it. Okay, well, I'm going to do something similar. And then all of a sudden, I'm a victim. I got called by the FBI and he says, first thing out the door, Brian, you're a victim too. And I'm like, I literally had to kind of wrap my head around that because I was just thinking that I was almost the perpetrator. Because I had no control over stopping it, it made me, I felt helpless. I felt responsible. I'm on a vacation and then I get back and I'm reading my Instagram messages and there's a woman in there that says, Brian, you spent the money I sent you. How come you did that? Why'd you do that? You're not supposed to do that. Literally, I'm reading that's not the only one. There's other women that, why do you let people follow you on Instagram? They're all over your accounts. Why don't you get rid of those people that are following you? Putting that onto me like I'm the one doing something wrong. That starts to play into stuff about your own personal life. Oh, have I made bad decisions? Am I a bad person? I thought I worked through this shit. So I'm grateful for this documentary. I'm grateful that the word got out. I'm grateful that day I walked up to Andy Robertson at a retreat center. I'm grateful that I finally found someone to make the documentary and make it in a way that is amazing. This story is incredible because you can tell by the questions you're asking. It's off the hook and it's all real. It's all real. The shit's real. This is not fake.
So that was actually a question I was going to ask. How did the two of you meet? You said that you met him at a retreat?
It's a crazy story. So I had just come off of another show I was executive producing, and it was a difficult project. And I was having one of those moments like, I've made a lot of true crime television shows and a lot of documentary shows in my career. And I just thought I might be at the end. Like, this is it. Maybe I'm going to quit the business. And I decided I was going to go on this sort of writer's retreat at a place called Esalen, the Esalen Institute in Big Sur. And I remember getting there and thinking to myself, like, oh God, what am I doing? I've made a huge mistake. I mean, it's a very new age place where we're going to meditate. We're going to craft stories. We're going to learn to do some yoga in order to let the writing flow through us or whatever. And I'm like, God, this is just too hippy dippy for me. I'm not sure I'm in the right place here. And I remember going to the place and to the cafeteria at this place. And I set my tray down and I'm just feeling very insecure. Suddenly the door to the cafeteria burst open and this extremely handsome man walked through the door. And my first response was, oh my God, that's that jock I knew in high school and all the girls loved him and I resented him and he didn't even know my name. I hope he's not in my seminar. And I put my head down and a few minutes later, a tray sits down next to me and I look up and there's Brian. And he opens his mouth and starts talking. And I realize like, oh my God, I've made a terrible mistake. I've taken all my insecurities and I've just projected them onto this man and summoned this like alternate identity out of thin air in order to haunt me. What am I doing that for? And I talked to Brian and I realized he's a wonderfully open person. He's hilarious. He's kind and he's trying to build his makeup business. He's at this seminar to try to figure out a way to build his makeup business more. And he's having all of this trouble because his social media sites are shut down because he's having his identity stolen in all these romance scams. And he starts telling me about all these women that are contacted him. And I realized that I wasn't the only one to do that, to look at Brian's face as this sort of blank movie screen upon which I could project my own internal thoughts. That's what these women are doing. He's just kind of has this sort of perfect likeness in a photograph that he can be whatever you need him to be. And I realized right then, like, yeah, I could probably, sell this documentary if I wasn't going to quit the business. But by the end of our seminar, all these other wonderful people that were there, like developing their ideas and helping us develop stuff, they're like, Brian, you got to tell this story. And Andy's going to direct it. That was 3 years ago. He's been recording these Zooms. He's been reaching out to these women. His email inbox was our casting resource. And all of these women that had these very fond feelings for Brian because he had helped them come back to earth after going through a terrible experience. They really wanted to participate. They really wanted to help other people who'd been through this before. They really mostly wanted to help Brian get his own identity back under his own control. We ended up developing decks and sizzle tapes and wonderful partners through Anchor Entertainment. Ethan Goldman and Keir Braxton were really instrumental in getting this film off the ground and helping it come together. And the people at ABC News Studios, who's the best network I've ever worked with, they're just phenomenal people to really give us creative freedom to make something really, really special. It was just an incredible journey to get this thing done, but we're so proud of what we pulled off after that really weird, insecure meeting a few years back. And I'm so fortunate that just the synchronicity of putting Brian and I in the same room at the time when I needed something like this the most. I'm truly blessed.
You obviously are anticipating more people reaching out who have experienced this after they see the documentary. Do you have any systems in place to allow people to reach out and say, hey, I fell victim as well? Is there any after plan for this?
I'm asking the same questions, Lance. What is going to come of this? Many people say different things. Brian, who knows what's going to happen out of this? There's going to be so many women that are going to come from this that have never wanted to talk about this, that are going to feel emboldened, hopefully, or feel not so much shame, that are going to want to talk about it. They'll contact me through an email. I have been working on a nonprofit. It's rolling out right now at the same time that is to set up to help with that. It's created, but it's still trying to figure out its way, Center for Restorative Justice and Dignity. I have a friend that's a therapist that kind of has talked to me about this a lot. He's worked with victims in other areas and worked for a nonprofit. And we started percolating this idea 2-3 years ago. There's so many victims out there, and they need to know that they're not alone. The big thing that I say is you've got to talk about this. It's like anything that we have shame around. Any secrets that we're keeping, I like to say, your secrets are going to keep you sick. And the sooner you share, your secrets, the sooner you're going to be able to move on. And if you continue to keep that secret, it's going to dog you all the way to your grave. It will be there. And particularly those ones that you're like, oof, wow, I made it. That was a choice that I made that I kind of wish I never made. Or so this is all about allowing people to see that I'm sharing secrets about my own self. You're going to learn things about Brian that you don't know. And with that, I'm sharing with you so that you can see that it's going to work out, that it's going to be okay. And these women, because of that, have the courage to come forward and to share their story with us, which then helps us get to what we are trying to do, is solve a crime. And with solving a crime, help more people to prevent them from falling into this situation themselves. Either ones that are there now, ones that could happen, because it's not going away. There's over 100 accounts open today still on a continual basis using my imagery. Not many are getting shut down because they don't shut them down. There's thousands of accounts over the years and over time that have been opened, thousands upon thousands. That is our goal. That is the goal of the nonprofit that I've created. Give them a place to talk with others. Community, to me, is the most important thing here, because you're like an island out there trying to figure it out on your own and trying to end it. But you just, when you end it, does it mean that you ended the chaos and the stuff that you feel inside? It's like anything like that. And so you need somewhere else to go and talk to.
This has been a great conversation, you guys. I'm wondering, is there any way that some of our listeners can recognize any of these tricks that these scammers use?
First of all, be very wary of anybody that you meet online. You don't know who you're dealing with, and it is very easy to fake credentials. So right off the bat, if you're going to have online relationships with people that you don't see in real life, be very cautious. Tell people about the relationships that you're having. You know, if you've met somebody online and you're dating somebody online, let somebody else know. Tell a friend or a family member. Make sure that you don't keep it a secret. If somebody's encouraging you to hide this relationship, that's a red flag. Unfortunately, a lot of the women who are caught up in this particular scam, and there are a lot of men who are caught up in very similar scams as well. Our story is about women who have fallen in love with Brian's picture, but there are a lot of men out there who fall for the scam too. There's a lot of teenagers who fall for the scam. And so many people are married and they don't want to, they're doing this, on the DL because they don't want other people to find out about this affair that they're having. But that's something to really be cautious about. If somebody's asking you for money online, that is a giant red flag. That's the biggest one that you can have. If you're having a relationship with somebody and they're stuck in a remote location, that's another red flag. Often these people are in foreign countries, or their story is that they're in a foreign country or on an oil rig or working on a ship or somewhere where they may not have access to a bank. Those are giant red flags. Just be very careful about that. And like I said, a lot of these scammers, they use love bombing techniques, making victims feel wonderful about themselves, and those can be irresistible. I hate to tell people, like, if somebody loves you online, watch out for that, because everybody is worthy of love and deserving of love. But there are people who are going to use the love bombing and over-loving techniques to try to win your heart over and get you to open your pocketbook. And you have to be really careful of that. There's resources like Scam Haters United, which is a website that we work with the founder of, who'd really opened up a lot of stuff. She keeps a database of photographs that have been used. There's a Google reverse image search. It's the easiest thing you can do. When you go to that Google search bar, you can drag a photograph into that search bar and it'll show you other places that photograph is used online. And that can let you know right off the bat if you're dealing with somebody that's real or that's fake. If you ever see anybody else's name coming up with that picture, when you do that reverse Google image search, it's probably a scam. You're probably not in the situation that you think you are. And although it's going to be very difficult to process that and to come to terms with that, it's very, very dangerous if you just let that continue and take the person who you're talking to's word for it. Tell somebody else.
You guys are amazing. The amount of insanity that you've gone through, and to be able to come on the show and make that docu-series and still have such a positive outlook and is incredible. I think a lot of people who have gone through similar situations will look at that and say, hey, it doesn't have to be the end of the world.
It's enjoyable to watch the women that I've met, and I've met a lot of women online through Zoom, spoke to them through email, and then the women that are the key subjects in this video, who I've met all in person now. It's wonderful to watch and see that their lives continue on, that they're wanting to actually do good, that they're wanting to be a part of this. They want to get the messaging out themselves and help. I get messages all the time from women that I've spoke to for 5-6 years. Oh, hey, Brian, what's going on? Just wanted to check in with you. And it's nice. I've built relationships with these women. Come visit. I get a lot of come visits.
Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Best of luck on the documentary.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Lance.
It comes out tomorrow, the 20th. It's happening in less than 15 hours. You'll have the chance.
It's going to be on Hulu, May 20th. Thank you so much.